All right. So, gentlemen, ladies, if there are any of you out there, we've got some female MSP clients, so make sure I don't disrespect them. Welcome to our Wednesday training on sales training techniques and situations. This week, we are going to have a, a guest speaker, and we're going to see a demo. We're going to see a presentation on the Friday AI solution that if you're in our MSP Engine Partner Program, you've heard me talk a lot about. If you are a MSP that has been invited to our training that is considering our program, then welcome. This is an instrumental component of how we position you and your MSP as a consulting agency in the marketplace to be unique, right? So what I'm going to do to get things kicked off is you'll learn from my trainings is we don't just sit back and listen to someone talk and go through a deck and then do a demo, because those are boring as hell. And I can't wait to get off of them, no matter how great it is. The way that I train and the way that I conduct these trainings is as we're hearing about the product or service, I interact with the trainer to talk about how we position the technology with the customer and how we're training salespeople to use that as to either compel or seduce or educate and inform a customer to understand the relevancy of whatever that product and service is. So if this is your first time coming to one of my trainings, it's probably going to be unique and different, but hopefully you like it a lot better than anything you sit on any other time. So I'm going to share my screen for a minute here, and I'm going to set TJ and the Friday solution up to show you guys where it's most relevant in our presentation. And then TJ is going to walk you guys through the product and give you guys a good technical understanding of its feature, of its functionality. And through what I'm going to show you and what he's going to show you, you're going to see how this is going to be one of the most powerful tools that has, I believe, ever came into the MSP space that allows us to do what we do to build our business and make money that we've possibly ever seen. So with that said, TJ, you ready to kick things off?
I'm ready.
Beautiful. So I'm going to take about 5 minutes here on the front end, then I'm going to turn it over to you. So sound good?
Sounds good.
Beautiful. Okay, here we go, guys. So here is the agenda for today. We will stay within the hour. We're going to talk about really quickly transactional to transformational. Channel Partners released an article that I dropped into our channel it speaks to our business as MSPs, volumes, where we were and where we got to go. So I'm going to touch on that for 2 minutes. Educate and inform to compel and seduce customers into a meeting. I'm going to show you how we do that. Proven process to propose and close. Each one of these are going to take 1 to 2 minutes. Pricing, profitability. I'm going to show you the pricing. I'm going to show you the profitability of this. Then you're going to see the presentation and demo, because I want you to be excited about everything that you see and hear from TJ. Because right now, if you're not, you will be when you see the pricing and the profitability that comes from this technology and how we're going to present it to the customer to where they know they just got to have it. It's not optional. And then we should have some time for Q&A at the end, depending on how long TJ goes. So here we go. First thing, and if you don't have this article, we can drop it to you, or it's in the channel if you're already a partner today. Really quick, channel partners, this is the MSP's going from transactional to transformational, the evolving role of the MSP. And what it talks about here is the old way that we were doing business. In the past, we were siloed off from the clients, overarching digital initiatives and processes. This is the old vendor mentality. The role of the MSP in the digital transformational boom. Companies know that they must operate efficiently and strategically today. However, demand for evolving technology has outpaced in-house capabilities for most organizations. That's music to our ears, gentlemen. We want the business, we want technology to outpace what a business is able to keep up with themselves, because that makes us relevant. Now they have to come to us to do business. It reveals the utility of an MSP. So the new way for us as MSPs, we can't just be, hey, we're here to fix your computer, we're here to fix your server. We have to be an instrumental component of their leadership team. We have to become a trusted advisor to the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, if they have one. And we got to become that CISO, that Chief Information Security Officer. If you're an MSP today and you're not really keen on adding cybersecurity applications, compliance as a service, and adding CISO packages that we sell to business customers, then you're creating your own demise. That is the evolution of our industry. And that's what this article talks to, is how we transition and we become that for every business customer that we have. So make sure that you get this link from us, whether you're a client or not. And then quickly, right, I'm going to show you guys how we position ourselves and our MSPs to get the meeting. So our website speaks volumes to our IT technology and cybersecurity audit. Simple, right? Then when we're speaking to a customer, we talk about what makes our MSPs unique. And we have literally put together a bulleted list of items that our MSPs, we ensure that they have in place, that we ensure they have the resources that other MSPs don't, or probably don't. They haven't evolved yet. At least that's what we're seeing in the marketplace. And that's exactly what we're telling this customer, because 9 times out of 10, this is what we're seeing. And then their in-house IT, the article speaks to this. They don't have the time to do the R&D. So when we educate a customer on this, we then speak to the facts. When you can tell a customer something that they already know, but they haven't said, that builds credibility. Well, this is what our appointment setters and our brand ambassadors are doing every single day on these meetings that come in from marketing. We're stating 27% of companies are working virtually. 85% cybersecurity is their biggest threat that they're concerned about. There's been an 800% increase. These are all things they know and they're hearing and they're seeing. So we're validating those facts, building credibility so that they will speak to us. And then we show them the perfect virtual employee stack, right? And right here is Friday. It is an instrumental component of the perfect
what are you looking for?
employee stack. Okay, so
Check to go back.
You got something, Alex?
And
You got a
check.
question? Nope, I think he was just unmuted. So we're gonna mute him and welcome him back when he's ready. Okay, so here's an example. So you guys, if you're not a client today, you can see the meeting comes in 5 locations, 30 employees, CEO of the company. Great job, appointment setter. You just teed it up. Now we got to have a proven process. Here's our questionnaire that gives our MSP partners all the information they need coming into the phase 2. Then all the questions for the phase 2, when you come into it from a technical perspective, over on the right, that we're going to ask of this customer around these technologies, around these services. If it's new to you, we have the framework. So what you're looking at is a proven process, a proven framework of how we run the phase 1, the phase 2, the on-site. When we go on site, we do the scans to gather the information to where we can come back and we can build the solution to present and close this solution. If Q&A and demos are involved, that's a phase 4. And then how we hand it off to project management. So it's about having a very dynamic and entertaining story that we tell each step along the way in this proven process. So the questionnaire is the right questions to ask to position our products, our services, what we want to sell to the customer and what they need, more importantly, right? That gives us both what we need and want. The introduction, the cleansing takes place in the phase 1, the technical discovery and the setup, the on-site scans and surveys, the presentation and pre-close the Q&A demo, and the final close, and then hand off to project management. This is a proven, perfect sales process that's going to position us to sell everything in our portfolio. Okay, now, what is that? I want you to see this on the front end. I want you to see where Friday fits into the perfect virtual employee stack. So what you're looking at, 3 tiers: no managed services, just cyber applications and protection, right? We've got a CISO package in here for a small company, $120 a user. For most MSPs, this is double what they're billing today per user. The average is about $65 per user. This is a $5,000 MRR contract, monthly recurring revenue. If we were to just sell them this ultimate virtual employee stack, no managed services, think about that. No tech time whatsoever. Now, most customers we have today, it's either hybrid or fully outsourced. If we've got the hybrid solution, we're doing the help desk. Well, this is where Friday is going to come in, right? A small customer, $6 per license, right? This is if each user only has 1 license. We know that a network usually has more devices on it than a company has employees. So this is just showing you if it was a 1-to-1 ratio, right, what it'd be looking at. And then if it's fully outsourced, now we're at that coveted $250 price point plus, $250 plus price point. That's where we want every customer to at least be proposed to be at. And whether they buy everything or half of what we're recommending or a fourth of what we're recommending, if as long as you take that plus your managed services, it's going to lift your MRR on existing and new customers. So now, right, we see how we tee up an opportunity, how we seductively seduce them into the conversation, the proven sales process, we see the pricing, and now, lastly, before I turn it over to TJ, right, we can see here on a small customer with 60 licenses for, let's say it's a 1-to-1 ratio for easy conversation, 60 people with 60 devices, right? This customer, we're going to tell this story on why this technology that is state of the art, it's the first of its kind. It's an artificial intelligence with behavioral learning that is going to allow us to remediate your problems so dramatically faster than what you've ever experienced before. It's gonna make it feel like when you have a problem, we're immediately fixing it. Because most of the problems we are going to immediately fix. The ones we can't, it's going to tell us exactly where to go to triage those problems. So because we have to have this cost inside of our MSP in order to level up and stay relevant and competitive in our space, we got to pass along this cost to our customers so that we are able to stay in business. And this is the conversation that most MSPs are scared to have. They see a cost that they have to bear and they just add it in, right? And they don't want to go back to their existing customers and have a conversation on why the bill has to go up. This is part of what we do here at Blue Equinox. So look at this profit margin, $5 a license for 60 licenses is a $235 profit at a 78% gross profit. Gentlemen, this is how we get our EBITDA 5 years from now over 30%. Selling services like this that are cutting edge, that are relevant to our business needs and what our customers need. So I hope this gets you guys excited. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, TJ Carwell, CEO and founder of Cluster Networks.
Thank you for that warm introduction. I always get fired up hearing you talk about incoming revenue, Scott.
Is that just warm? Because I wanted that to be a hot introduction. Thanks, man.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Absolutely. Yeah. Wherever you are in the US or around the world here, it's an honor to be family here. As Scott has mentioned, my name is TJ Carwell. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cluster Networks. We are the founding company of Friday AI. We'll talk in detail heavily about Friday, but wanted to spend a few minutes talking about ourselves, our backgrounds. Myself and my co-founder, Gary, And then it'll be a really good tee up talking about our background and really how Friday was born, if you will. But Gary, are you on the call with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Cool. Would you like to start and intro yourself there?
Sure. Yeah. Pleasure to meet everybody. I'm a co-founder of Cluster Networks and have been very much focused on Friday and its development over the course of the last 3 to 5 years. And TJ will give you a bit more info on it. But Cluster Networks started off as a traditional managed services provider. I have personally over 15 years of managed services experience. Before starting our organization, I worked for Dimension Data, which is also known as NTT, which is one of the top 2 largest managed service providers in the world. So I've worked from small MSPs with a handful of customers to large enterprise accounts and supporting large accounts like Caterpillar. So I'm very familiar with kind of the day-to-day, what the challenges are across the board, and I'm looking forward to being able to show you a bit more about what we can do with our platform.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
Like Gary, I too actually started my career in engineering. I started very early with Cisco Systems as a generalist systems engineer. My space was primarily focused in the Southern California area, selling Cisco's entire suite of products into the mid-market, select, and enterprise space. So, heavily involved in the world of IT, both from the post-sales and pre-sales perspective. About the last 5 years of my Cisco SE run there, I had actually jumped off the Cisco bandwagon and joined this very up-and-coming startup at that time called Meraki. Everyone knows it today as Cisco Meraki. But at that time, I was one of 2 Meraki consulting systems engineers running around the country, helping bring that product to market. During that time, I would say in the 2 to 3 years that I was there, had the opportunity to meet Gary Wright. We had joined forces, had a very interesting perspective on where we saw the industry at today and where we foresaw it going and how we could make some pretty solid impact in that space. So we jumped off, quickly had a good run of success, especially in retail in our early years. And quickly signed on companies like Jamba Juice across 650 of their locations. We also support Pete's Coffee in their nationwide locations. Today, we support Carl's Jr. and are quickly ramping up to support their 4,000 plus locations. But one of the things that we really, really understood in the MSP space was, there needs to be an opportunity for us to scale here. And without going too much into detail of that, one of the things that we did, which was foundational for our organization, was that we actually made a decision to scale in software rather than in manpower, right? And that's really where Friday AI was born. And we'll talk about what Friday did for us as an organization and where its current state is and what it could potentially do for other MSPs out there. Okay. As Scott said, please make it collaborative. If anybody is bursting on asking a question, just jump right in and don't hesitate to cut me off there. Okay. So let's get into it. And of course, there we go. Okay. So as we mentioned, Friday was ultimately built by Cluster Networks and the co-founders itself, both Gary and I from Cisco and Dimension Data. But again, when we early started there, we were very much what's defined today as your traditional managed services provider. Once we started hitting around the 500 to 600 site point, we were able to foresee growth was absolutely needed to be part of the equation there. And we quickly started building and putting a lot of development time into something that had proven to be very successful for us at that time. And that is what we proudly call Friday today. All right. So what is Friday? Friday is a purpose-built AI focused on managing IT operations so that the MSPs can do the following. Okay. The big one, the one that's probably the most immediate impact in your face right away, is being able to reduce the management of the technology footprint that we support for our customers today, and also being able to do more with less. I would say probably now more so than at any point in history, I think our customers truly do understand that technology is mission critical to their business. And you, to Scott's point, how we were talking about earlier, you as the organization who leads that, your ability to respond and address issues as they occur can make the biggest impact on your customer's brand. And how you come out of resolving the issues, whether it be a hack or failure or whatever the technology issue may be, that makes the biggest impact not only on your brand, but also the organization that you're supporting. We are able to also greatly increase the speed of resolving issues, and we'll talk about how we're actually triaging the issues in AI itself to determine the root cause of problems, right? Provide a proactive support model versus a reactive one. And this is a paradigm shift that when we work with any organization, whether it be an MSP or a customer, it's very much overlooked, and nobody truly understands the impact it has when you're actually being proactive and notifying the customer that, look, you are aware of a problem in their environment, rather than the customer running into that problem head on, taking downtime, pulling away from their core responsibilities, right? You as the MSP should be aware of the organizational issue and actually proactively notify the organization on why that issue is occurring, right? Friday enables you to do that, and we'll talk more about that in detail here. Quickly assess the overall health of an organization. This is one that, again, anytime we step into an MSP or a customer environment, a lot of times can say, yeah, you know what, our organization is healthy, and they're really only getting one side or one angle or one view into their environment. Maybe they're just looking at their RMM tool and seeing that all their site devices are online. Maybe they're just looking at their internet links. Maybe they're just looking at their firewalls or their network infrastructure. Friday is really the only product that we're fully aware of that can say, look, your organization is healthy because everything from your clients to the applications to they're running, to Ethernet cable that connects them onto the network, to the Wi-Fi device, to the internet links, the AP, the switch, the power supplies, and everything in between is functioning within bounds, and there are no issues occurring on your site. And that is what we define as healthy, right? We'll talk more about that in a second here. Significantly reduce IT support costs. That'll be pretty transparent when we talk about that. And also provide a compelling ROI for MSPs such as ourselves versus an in-house traditional IT team, right? I think what you'll see when we go into this is that Friday is really this self-sustained single pane of glass that allows you to do everything from becoming aware that an event is occurring on site to automatically triaging it and resolving on their behalf. And then a lot of times that can be done without even lifting a finger, right? So let's talk about how we're doing that. Okay. Now, today, in Friday's current state, we're really focused on being a model that addresses a lot of the inefficiencies around level 1 support, right? And there are ultimately 3 pillars that we define that hold up a lot of that level 1 support entity. In this case, it would be the ability to monitor, the ability to triage and determine the root cause of a problem. And then depending on that, if that issue isn't resolved, once you do determine the root cause, proactively escalate to the appropriate team, whether that mean the customer, the site, a service provider, a vendor, whatever that might be, right? So Friday takes a very different approach on how we're doing all 3 of these. Let's talk about advanced site monitoring for a second. Again, we're not talking about just monitoring the network or just the internet links. We're monitoring everything within a site's IT footprint. We're talking about IoT devices, printers, computers, workstations, network APs, switches, the power supplies, even the Ethernet cable in between them, right? And we'll talk about how we're even doing that. So I guess the point I want to make here is that we really do have this cross IT workflow and this understanding about how things are behaving within any given environment. Now, the way we're monitoring, we're not doing what your traditional monitoring environments do. We're not doing what like your SolarWinds or your Nagios or your Splunk or any of those other type of environments are doing. And what that is standing up some sort of central server where we point all of our devices to the central server via an SNMP. And if one of those devices fail in the field, we have to go replace it and then point it back on. Ultimately, we're not creating this huge administration burden just for putting in place some sort of monitoring platform in itself. In Friday's world, and this is the key of really how Friday is really working, Friday is actually speaking to the APIs of the infrastructure directly. So we're speaking directly to the devices themselves. And like I said, we're not standing back and passively collecting information. Since Friday is able to speak to the APIs of the infrastructure, we're able to ask a series of questions and learn the environment, right? So we learn things like, okay, how many sites are there? How many devices are on site? Firewalls, switches, APs. How many IoT devices are on their site? What's the status of the Ethernet cable that connects those? What's the status of the Wi-Fi performance, right? Again, a series of really 50 to 100 questions that we're learning, right? Keep in mind, because we're not setting up some central monitoring platform, and because we are using APIs to communicate to the devices via software directly, we're actually able to do this last point here, turn up hundreds, if not thousands of sites in the matter of, quite honestly, minutes, right? Huge shift from what's happening, right? Quick fun story here. When we actually engaged with Pete's Coffee and turned on Friday for their environment, the first time we actually demoed Friday for Pete's, we quite literally turned on the whole platform within like 20 minutes before our meeting with them. And we were able to learn all 200 of their locations. We were able to set a baseline of what Friday established as normal. And that what baseline of normal meaning, how are their devices behaving today? Which ports are connected? What's the traffic that's happening back and forth? How is the resiliency and the health of the internet connection? And so on and so forth. And we set that as a baseline model, right? So advanced site monitoring, much more advanced than your typical centralized server monitoring environment today, okay? Being able to triage IT issues in AI, right? What you find in Friday is that when an event actually occurs, because we have visibility into really all of these data points of what's happening on site, Friday is actually able to do data correlation and not only determine that an actual event is occurring on site, but we can actually get proactive and say, look, because of what we're seeing perhaps in the health of the internet circuit or whatever node on site, we can see that an issue is going to occur. And Friday can proactively either apply configuration changes proactively, or it can do an escalation to the support MSP or the support help desk in which they can take action for, right? Now, because we're able to triage the issue in AI itself and determine what the root cause of the problem is for any given scenario, we also have the ability to make network configuration changes on the fly, right? So, let's say we see an anomalous event that's occurring on site. Let's say we set a baseline of normal where we're in a particular site and all of a sudden we see one workstation uploading a bunch of traffic to some foreign country that had never really done that before. Well, Friday can dynamically say, this is an anomaly. This device is behaving outside of the bounds of how it normally behaved. Dynamically apply a rule to that so that device can only speak out to Google and perhaps nothing else, right? So really high level example there, but again, the ability to take actionable follow-up depending on the events that what Friday is seeing on site. And if it can't do the remediation on site for whatever given reason, it can actually proactively reach out to either a source on site, the MSP, a vendor. It can proactively alert and do escalation on your behalf to whatever organization, depending on what that issue is and what it's occurring at any given time.
So how much of an actual understanding of network topology are we talking about here? Like, does it actually grasp dependencies that, the access point isn't working because the switch isn't working? For example, the switch isn't working because the upstream port is misconfigured. What level of, network engineering expertise did you manage to bake into that AI?
So to answer your question is, yes, it is aware of all of those events. My background, I actually came from a CCIE in routing and switching. So there was a lot of emphasis on networking in this respect, right? So those examples that you called out, let's say a failed AP occurred, it actually literally, when it goes and triages it, it does go up the chain. AP failed, why did it fail? Is the Ethernet cable good? Yeah. Is the upstream port good? Yeah. Is the switch good? Yeah. Is the power supply good? Yeah. it just can ultimately goes up the chain and delineates what is it that's causing the issue itself.
Okay. So it might not be able to fix it because it requires hands-on, but you'll be starting from the right device.
Yes, exactly. And us being as an MSP, right? If it requires physical intervention, Friday's intelligent enough to know that, look, we just need a technician on site. But if it's something that's related to, let's say, a DHCP pool was totally exhausted and no Wi-Fi clients could actually connect because that pool is exhausted, you can
That's a common
either
one.
expand that scope or do it. Yeah, exactly. Right.
So, TJ, can I ask a quick question? So we just had
Please.
10 minutes ago, a municipality that we do work for show up as offline. And, we just knew after 6 minutes it was offline. After some phone calls and having some person run around there at the borough, found out that a car had hit a pole out front, which knocks the power out to the building. The office where the server was moved into just recently, that one outlet is not on the generator. So Friday would sort of backtrack and say, hey, would it be able to tell us no power? Not, hey, the modem's just down, or would it be able to sort of give that type of indicator back to us that we would know there is no power, not just, hey, the Ethernet cable was unplugged or something of that nature?
Yeah, the answer is yes, right? And so there's a couple different ways that we can detect power outages. To be clear, we're not actually alerting on power outages today. It's actually a beta feature that we're working on baking out a little bit more before we roll it into production. But yeah, how we address those type of scenarios, like let's say, again, we're doing a lot of data correlation. So let's say there's a power outage in a particular part of a building. We would look at things like, okay, this device went offline. How many other devices went offline at the same time? Okay, if those devices went offline, what's the status of the internet? One of the things that we can even determine without getting too deep into this is we can say, look, this is running on a Comcast link. Is Comcast up, or is Comcast having a geographical outage or whatever it might be, right? So the short answer is yes, we can detect anomalous behavior and we can say, look, this is most likely due to a power outage. The most definite way to do that is to have the UPS as an IoT device in which where we can, pull that for data and definitively know, yep, you're running on backup power right now, you're on a power outage. But yeah, again, we can get creative on how we determine those type of things.
Thank you.
And that sounds like something, the better we architect our sites as far as resiliency, battery backups, whatever else, that's going to help your tool get us more value.
That's what I was thinking, Josh. Same thing, yeah.
Yes, that's a great call out. Really, and again, why is that occurring? Because again, Friday is speaking to the infrastructure of itself, right? So if we have the capability of determining a device who is on site has aware of whatever power issues are occurring on site, that's just more data we can feed intelligently into Friday and then alert on, right?
Yeah, Ron, that example is actually really important given the fact that, depending on how much visibility you had personally in that situation, is that deducing down to what that issue was required on-site intervention, right? Where you have to manually duplicate what all those chain of events were to even know who to call.
If I called and said that there's no power to the outlet, they'd be like, how do you know? You're not even here. All right, my AI told me. That's very powerful. Where we like, hey, we got a response, had a girl run around, found out that a car hit a pole out front. Oh my gosh, there's one outlet's not on the generator. The other part of the building is, but this one outlet isn't. Who knew that the outlet in this 100-year-old building didn't have generator power? Now we know, but we would have sort of maybe be able to deduce that and going right to that solution or that problem faster than having someone run around on site.
Absolutely.
Hey, TJ.
Yes.
In the deck, right? I think the problem in motion, right? That demonstration is perfect when you get to that here in the deck. And I just want to be, I'm watching the time, so we got 22 minutes left.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, good questions, good call out. It's actually my next slide, so we can go into that. So here's a really good 2 slides on describing in its entirety of what really one of the big value points of what Friday's bringing to the table, right? So it doesn't really matter what type of support organization you are. Ultimately, every support ticket follows this high-level model. An incident occurs, somebody goes and engages level 1 support for, getting support on a particular issue. If the front desk level 1 support can't resolve it, then they escalate. Maybe that escalation could happen to an ISP. Maybe it could happen to a vendor. Again, maybe it could happen to an internal dev team, whatever that might be. But at the highest level, doesn't matter how severe, if a site is down or if a device is down, they're ultimately following this level at the highest degree, right? But to add some context to this, I'll just put this in a frame of, let's say we're talking about Pete's Coffee here. Let's say we're working with a particular store of one of their 300 stores across the country, and we get a support case in the legacy model where somebody is saying they have bad Wi-Fi performance. Pretty ambiguous support ticket. I think we've all dealt with something that says, hey, I'm having Wi-Fi issues. Like, okay, what does Wi-Fi issues even mean, right? But what we found statistically, and this is really interesting where things happen, is that most of the time when people experience an issue, like I said earlier, they're running face first into the problem head on, right? Not even knowing that that problem probably could have been occurring for minutes, hours, probably a day, sometimes a week plus before anybody even noticed that that incident was occurring, right? But again, most incidents, they occur and they get awareness when somebody runs headfirst into the problem. So what do? They step away from their core responsibilities and they ultimately engage somebody's support help desk. That could be either picking up the phone and calling your support desk, or it could be firing off an email and waiting for a reply. At that point, they're waiting for the support desk to ultimately review the support case. Again, if it's somebody who called in, it could be them just saying, hold on, let me check what's going on in the environment. If it's an email, they could go back and forth and saying, okay, all right, tell me more about what this bad Wi-Fi performance actually means, how many devices are affected, et cetera, so on. Ultimately, there's this back and forth that occurs. So the incident can be understood by both the support team and the actual customer themselves, right? In this case, for a Pete's Barista, bad Wi-Fi performance could mean that maybe their mobile tablet that does point of sale for line busting outside, that's the only device that's having bad Wi-Fi performance, right? And let's say it's due to maybe a failed AP. Let's say it's due to maybe a failed internet connection and the site's running on half bandwidth, right? Whatever it is, there's ultimately a back and forth that goes so that both the MSP and the customer can understand what the root cause of the problem is so they can address it, okay? Now, some interesting tidbits here. What we found when we first turned on Friday, before we were even using it in production, is that over 61% of the cases were occurring for at least 91 minutes before anybody even raised a support case with us, right? So for an hour and a half, that issue was occurring, and it could be whether that person was so busy that they couldn't step away from their job to either create the request or they just weren't even aware of it. The other 39% odd, whatever it might be, some of those were actually over 1.5 days where literally a problem was occurring and nobody noticed it. And maybe like 5 to 10% of those were like, okay, it happened within 10 minutes and we actually saw the report request come in. But again, a majority of the report requests were occurring for 91 minutes before anybody even noticed or brought it to our attention. Once we actually see the support request came in to the point where we are actually determining the root cause, 35% of those cases took at least an hour. Again, not because it's due to the inexpertise of our support engineers. We have some really savvy support engineers. Maybe it's just we had a high load at that time, whatever it might be. Point here being is that most of the issues, a large majority of them, were already experiencing issues or were showing signs that an incident was occurring that could have been addressed before a real problem occurred on site, okay? So what happens at this point? Somebody, and they say, okay, the issue, if the level 1 support agent can resolve it, then great, excellent. That problem stops right then and there and they continue on their way. But if, let's say they couldn't, let's say in this scenario, it was, it could have been anything. It could have been the upstream switch failed. In this case, let's say it was a secondary internet connection that had failed and it was only showing signs of bad Wi-Fi performance. And it was running, there were 50 clients on there and they were running on a 5 meg connection, whatever it might be. Of course, that person's going to experience performance. So what does that person do? They escalate. They escalate maybe to an on-site technician that can go and resolve the issue. It may be maybe some ISP consortium like Granite, so Granite can dispatch a technician. Maybe it's Comcast, AT&T, whoever it might be. We perform an escalation request. That escalation request then gets coordinated for next steps. When is that technician going to show up? Oh, okay, Tuesday at 5. Customer, coordination with the customer, coordination with the on-site, coordination with the tech. And then all of that is really just to accomplish that this technician can come on site and hopefully they can resolve that issue because they have the information they need to understand the core problem of what's happening, right? And that issue kind of just goes on its way. Here's the kicker with this, is that what we find in most scenarios is that anytime we're doing an escalation event, it takes 2 days plus to either get a technician on site or to resolve a lot of those issues, especially when we're talking about events that occur maybe towards the end of the week and only maybe that organization that operates within business hours, what have you, right? A lot of opportunities for potential issues to occur on this site. The complexity is certainly one thing, but every milestone that we cross here, not only is it slow and cumbersome, but it introduces more complexity as we go to resolve this. If we wanted to be proactive in this model by any means and add in some sort of monitoring so we can have somebody that responds to monitoring events, we're really just introducing more complexity into the environment because that's another piece of software that somebody needs to manage and maintain. It's a database we need, et cetera, and so forth. Scale is another big point of this. This example is for one customer, for one site, across one single user, across one event, right? Anybody can probably solve that if they're getting one support ticket a day. But being able to scale this model requires a lot of formalities, processes, tools, and things that need to be placed to kind of get this going. Cost is definitely a big inherent factor in all of this. Speed is a big inherent factor in all of this. What we found with Friday, and I'll talk more about this in the next slide, is that we've quite literally been able to take issues that typically take anywhere from days to a week plus to resolve. And now Friday is resolving them within minutes and hours, right? Minutes and hours. The biggest, most single challenge with any of this though, however, is the customer experience. At any point across any of these milestones, the customer experience has a lot of potential to just be degraded, especially when we're doing this with any sort of volume on it, okay? Any questions on the legacy model? Any feedback on that?
I think we're all familiar with this.
Yes.
Painfully so.
We live it, and yes, scale is complex.
Yes.
And I've always said
Absolutely.
an RMM tool seemed to make things a little more complex because it added more complexity into it. So I can definitely feel this.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad you agree because we felt this heartburn for years before we put Friday into production. Let's talk about how Friday does it for a real quick second. Now, again, we follow the same model. An issue occurs, we escalate, and then we perform escalation again if Friday can't resolve it. However, some really big differences here. One, the moment an incident actually occurs, Friday is actually aware of it. 9 times out of 10, Friday becomes aware of an incident before the customer even becomes aware of an incident is occurring on site. And because we can be aware of an incident, the moment it happens, we immediately start beginning to triage the issue. So what does Friday do? It does all heavy lifting for you. It triages the root cause of the problem in terms of why it's happening, what caused it to happen, and where the MSP needs to go to resolve that issue and put it away. It also engages the MSP via a support ticket and tells them all of that information. And at the same time, it informs the customer and says, hey, your site, Mr. Pete's Coffee, whatever, just experienced a degradation and your Wi-Fi performance is affected. Don't worry, we, the MSP, are aware of it. Here's your ticket ID. We'll keep you posted when we resolve it. And that gets literally wrapped up in a support ticket with all the information from Friday to that support desk if it can't resolve it on its own, okay? Well, what happens then? Let's say that particular case says, okay, we need an issue on, we need a support tech on site. It's literally one click in the email that fires off the whole instance to do all the automation for the escalation. Engage the ISP, the technician, whoever it might be, inform them of the incident and give them all the background information of what's occurring. Inform the customer and said, hey, you know what? This is actually due to a hardware failure. We're going to dispatch a technician to arrive at this site at this time, and here's what they're going to need to do. And then ultimately that technician just shows up and does what they need to do and they move on. They have all the information in front of them. They know exactly what the problem is. They know exactly where to go. We provide them pictures if they're available, and they're often doing that so they can bring that problem to a close as fast as possible. Some call outs here. Because we're able to detect incidents immediately, in most cases, Friday can detect an issue occurring within 90 seconds of a site actually experiencing that issue. To perform all the root cause triage, engage MSP support, do all the data correlation, inform the customer, get feedback back, we can determine the root cause of any given problem and have that at your desk with a solution in less than 6 minutes. And that's the most complex scenario we have. In most cases, you're probably getting these alerts within minutes of that event occurring. We are actually using our own support techs right now, but this is something that we're working with Scott on in the future as well. We are actually able to have a team of technical staff, nationwide techs, in which we can have a 4-hour SLA to have a technician on site with. And because we can do that and they're working with Friday, we can resolve issues and have a site resolved at maximum in 4 hours. So no matter how stringent of the issue that's occurring on site, to the point where it occurs, to the point where it resolves, most cases are being resolved in less than 4 hours. I would say 95% of our cases there. Okay?
So on that note, just to chime in here on what TJ just said, we're teeing up customers between 30 and 1,000 users. This solution right here it's instrumental no matter what the size of the customer is. But as you guys will see, I mean, 12, 13 meetings I've seen set today, almost every single one of them were multi-location customers, 5, 7, 10, 15, 148 location appointment set this morning with a small office, doctor's offices, right? We got a 210 location AEG medical. You can look them up, right? They're buying these eye clinics all over the country. When we talked to the director of IT there, this Friday solution was the thing that got him the most excited, because today he has a help desk of 3 guys that he thought he was going to have to build to 9 guys. And we're like, look, you can outsource this to our MSP, and they have this technology in place. You can do away with your help desk team completely, right? If you want to do that, reallocate those resources. So this solution right here is what positions us to be uniquely different than other MSPs that don't have this type of artificial intelligence. And we coach our brand ambassadors, just ask the question: does your MSP use artificial intelligence to support whatever level 1 issues come up in your network today, to immediately fix those? And if they can't, to triage the problem, to tell you exactly where it's at and you be notified of that? Or are you having to call them reactively and wait and wait and wait and wait? And what's that? That's a yes question that we ask to customers. We know the answer. We know the answer 100% of the time. No, they don't have an artificial intelligence. None of us have an artificial intelligence right now, because it's just being created. So that's how salespeople use this to drive the opportunity to you as the MSP. And then for you, with this technology in place, you reiterate that in our level 2 meetings, in our on-site meetings, in our presentations, between the salesperson and you, driving home these benefits that uniquely make us different. Go ahead, TJ.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I think one of the things, just closing this point out, I think we get the picture here. I would definitely want to get into the demo. We have 9 minutes left. But the one point I want to call out: complexity, cost. Yes, we win in both of those scenarios. Scale is a huge one. We wrote a white paper on a pilot customer we did, which was called ZenReach. Huge in retail. They run Meraki APs across their site, and their application is a Wi-Fi analytics tool that runs on top of an AP. Long and short of it was, we turned Friday on for 500 of their locations that were failing infrastructure was occurring. In the first 36 hours, Friday reached out to those customers via text message, keep in mind, we had no idea of what their IT environment looked like. All we know is we had the ZenReach's MSP AP on site. It was able to resolve and bring those APs back online without a single person getting involved, right? In the first 36 hours, 25% result. In the first 2 to 3 days, we actually received 98% of a success rate because we collected information. We either able to get it resolved and back online, or we received feedback like, hey, you got the wrong contact, I'm not this person, but here's who you need to contact. Friday collected data like that and ultimately just delivered that back to the end customer there. But I bring this up because I really this speaks huge stories to success of our ability to scale. Friday can triage thousands of incidents at the same time simultaneously, right?
And TJ,
huge game changer there. Yes.
I want to chime in there before you do the demo. The point that I
Yep.
was getting to there with the multi-location customers is a lot of you are, you're one location, and if you have a customer another state away, right, through our relationship here with Cluster and Friday, we can get qualified techs out there quickly within these SLAs that we put into the MSA that we're going to offer customers with known resources, known people that are trusted technicians that aren't your employees, right? So this is quickly coming into the fold because we see such a need for it. If we can't leverage one of our engine partners in the network and we got to trust it to a technician outside of our network of MSPs, then we want them to be a proven, trusted source. All right, TJ, just want to finish that thought off I had.
Cool, good stuff, good stuff. Here's a quick cost analysis on the savings we've actually been able to provide. We don't have it on the slide, but I'll say it amongst our group here. This is actually sampling Pete's Coffee's environment, 200 locations, a firewall, and 2 APs per location. What we're doing is we're looking at the legacy costs and what it would take to support this in the traditional manner, SolarWinds, dedicated system support engineer to manage too much coffee, manage that environment, proactive outreach, the required tools, RMM tools to get like insight into the devices themselves. Ultimately, the long and short of this is that when we did the cost analysis, we were literally able to save them upwards of $160,000 a year. And we were still able to be greatly profitable on that, right? So a lot of room for margin, a lot of room for making money on this tool, especially with how Scott shook us down and broke down our pricing to literally nothing, but it's okay.
So
all
hey,
good stuff
TJ,
there.
let's show
Yes.
let's show the portal really quick because that is powerful. And then if you guys have questions, I know we're coming up on 6 minutes. I'm going to end by explaining how you guys get signed up for Friday, so that you guys can start to deploy this, right, and learn about the onboarding, the standard operating procedure for onboarding, deploying it to customers, right? I'm going to share that with you guys here at the end.
Cool. So 5 minutes. So I'm just ultimately logging in, right? I'm a user who has a org-wide access. Type in my username and password. I'm going to hit login. And because of my access credentials, I'm immediately going to be brought to this first page, right? There are ultimately 2 views into Friday, right? And before I even go into those views, let me step back and say, for Friday to operate and run, you don't need any of this UI. If we turn on Friday in your environment, it's just going to turn on and do things in the background and do everything that it needs and everything that we discussed. If we want to be able to customize the communication, get some metrics and some KPIs, you understand how Friday is behaving, this is where the UI starts to become really compelling, right? The 2 views that I was talking about earlier, it's more of an on-site team view where maybe perhaps like if we're talking about a retail customer, this could be on-site staff and the portal they go to field support tickets. It could be like a general manager that has access to a group of sites, maybe managing multiple locations. So let's take a look at what the on-site team here looks like real quick, okay? We're actually in Pete's live production environment. But again, very quick sample view of what's occurring here. I'll go from top to bottom. The site list shows all of our sites that this particular user has access to. So you see the site names and you see an icon to the left. The green thumbs up means that there are no issues occurring at this site. All Ethernet cables are good. Wi-Fi APs are up and operating healthy. Both internet connections are up. Friday is absolutely SD-WAN aware, so it knows that both connections are performing well. Everything that we talked about, all is an issue on site. You'll see a yellow wrench right next to the site, right? We'll click on that site here more in a second, but let's just go through this. Again, status, green thumbs up, everything looks good. I can see that there are no issues occurring with my Wi-Fi network, my firewall, or any of my modems on site. I can see that all my site devices, my IoT devices, are online and healthy, right? You notice the icon here? Friday is able to fingerprint the device type, and that's actually really important to how Friday actually learns, because depending on the device type, we have an idea of how that device should be behaving on the network and as an application, okay? I can click on to any one of these views. Let's just click the edit button. Let's say I wanted to modify this and this wasn't a camera device. I can choose the type of device it was. I can name this Chronos time clock. And if I check this button here and hit update, this will take all the sites who are all the devices who are broadcasting this same name and show similar traits on the network across all 300 plus locations, and it will update them simultaneously once. So I'm not going site per site per site and updating every device. The whole goal here is to make management simple, right? I can get some site-wide information and take a look at the site alerts. This gives me visibility into all the issues that Fridays have detected, when it occurred, and when it was resolved, right? Okay, more information there.
BJ, where I see that ticket number, I see a lot of people asking a question. This integrates with, ConnectWise data, Kaseya, etc.
So we're not fully integrated with those companies right now. We're actually integrated with Zendesk. So integration is coming, but what you'll find is we are actually using our own ticketing number in the background, and then we pass that over to you in the ticket for now. We do have a part in our enrollment process that we're actually able to just onboard like via your Zendesk API key. We're going to expand further than Zendesk in here in the near future, but we're going to absolutely take a look at those ones that you mentioned.
Yeah, so I'm working on that, Ron, with them, and there's a custom solution for every scenario, right? That we have right now. So there'll be more to come on that. TJ, can you move to the global view, and then I want to wrap up here because we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah, no problem. That sounds good. So what Scott is talking about is looking at the operations view. The operations view is made for some sort of managerial, somebody who wants to understand their IT environment and their IT health from an organization view perspective, right? So right away, I can see all my sites here in their environment. I can see 0 are offline. I can see 32 sites that are actually having issues, 183 sites that are good. We'll click on that and look at that here in a second. We quantify some really important KPIs. These are KPIs that have been told to us directly that is hard for our customers to quantify. Those KPIs are, what is my average site uptime for all my sites in my site? What's my average mean time to resolution for issues that occur as the MSP? What's my average client uptime? What's my client uptime for all my IoT devices across all my sites in the environment? Very easily quantifiable right here, right? I can, I'll just click into this. I can click into this information and get a detailed list view of all the incidents that Friday has discovered, how long it took to resolve it, and where they currently stand in the environment in terms of getting resolved right now, okay? Let that page do its thing there. So not only does it tell you when it happened, why it happened, and where it's occurring, but it also quantifies how long it took before the issue was resolved. And it gives you a status bar on that, right? Last screen that Scott is talking about. Let's just take a look at our map view here. This gives me a global view into all the sites and how they're behaving here globally, right? You have a map view, see a list of sites. I can zoom into any one of these sites. I can view this as a list view. And I can see very easily, here are all my sites that are having issues. And here's the root cause of the problem at every site that's causing other issues to occur. Okay. We have some data tiles here. I'm 1 minute over, but I'm going to close this in 30 seconds, I promise. Top reoccurring issues, really important metric here. I can't stress this enough. I can't tell you how many times organizations will just go into an issue. Oh, just reboot the device. It comes back on, it works fine, but it doesn't resolve the issue. It just puts a Band-Aid on it. So what happens is you have this issue constantly coming back up and reoccurring because no one's taken the time to actually resolve it. What we do is we provide visibility into that, into the top reoccurring issues. We tell you which one of your sites are having the top reoccurring issues and how many times that issue has occurred in the last X amount of days. In this case, Pete's 1250, that primary internet has become disconnected 7 times in the last week. Chances are there's something going on with that upstream modem. I can click on that and get full detail view into every event that occurred and how long it took, and also an issue for a reason. Okay. There's a good amount of material going back. I know we have a follow-up session tomorrow, but this should be enough to just kind of give you a taste and visibility into what's happening here.
Beautiful job, TJ. So listen, guys,
Thank you.
we're 2 minutes past, but here's the deal. It's technology like this that is going to create the dynamic and entertaining story that positions you to be unique. And if you have spoken to me about sales once, you've heard it the very first time, and you'll hear it every time. We have to have a story that appeals to customers, that gets them excited about why we're unique compared to our competition. And this is part of the equation. Technologies like this that position us to do exactly that. So I hope you guys see how Friday is a part of the equation. It's a way that you can differentiate yourself in the market, and how, if you're a client of Blue Equinox, you will be able to benefit from every single opportunity we bring in, having this technology. So TJ has graciously waived the $299 per month platform cost to get Friday for Blue Equinox's partners. So the way that you get Friday is you onboard via Avi. So I asked Avi to join here at the end. Avi, wave, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
So you can Slack her if you are in our partner community. If you're not a client yet, well, that's a conversation that we need to solidify so that you can get the Friday technology. So guys, thank everyone for coming today. Again, get with Avi to schedule your onboarding with TJ. She'll coordinate that. We'll check the box, make sure it's done, and then we'll get you scheduled to be able to deploy this to your customers. Free betas, things like that that we've got teed up in the marketplace. We're over, so I'm going to adjourn the meeting today, but if you have questions, we can certainly do follow-ups. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you, everyone. TJ, great job.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great one.